Hello, algebra students. Today we're going to be going over the very first Algebra 1 tutorial. We're going to be going over the tutorial, the practice questions, as well as the mastery test questions. For the practice questions, I'll be going over every single one. For the mastery test questions, I'll be going over some in detail, and then some of them I'll just give you a hint. But if you're here for the mastery test, then you can go ahead and skip to that. But if you're here from the very beginning, working on tutorial, and we'll go through every single thing: tutorial, practice, and the mastery test. And what I want you to do is just as you follow along, if you write down everything I write and you write down all the questions, I guarantee you'll understand it much better. So if you have pencil and paper ready, pencil and paper and a calculator at hand, I would suggest getting those things now so you can write down everything I write. Ideally, you have a notebook for all your Algebra 1 notes and they all go in one place. I would strongly suggest having that and just write down everything that I write, everything that I say, and every question. I guarantee you'll understand it way, way better. Okay. With that, let's go ahead and work on the tutorial. Let's go ahead and skip all the way to page 5. That's where the first question is. And it looks like this. Recall the order of operations. So when it comes to the order of operations, you really need to know this, that it's PEMDAS. Hopefully you've seen this before. That's an A. Okay. P for parentheses. So if something's in the parentheses, you want to do that first. Then exponents. So parentheses, and again, write down everything I write. I guarantee it'll help. Then exponents. So like 2 to the power 4, something like this. Multiplying and dividing, that's M and D here. Those go together. So multiplying and dividing, they go together from left to right. So this is multiplying and dividing. These go together from left to right. Okay, so it's not that you always multiply first or you always divide first. It depends on which one comes up first in the problem, okay, from left to right. Same thing with adding and subtracting. With adding and subtracting, same idea. You want to do them together from left to right. Okay. So parentheses always first, exponents after that, multiplying and dividing together from left to right, adding and subtracting together from left to right. So this is the order of operations, and you need to have that in mind. So here in this sequence, what do we do first? Parentheses. Parentheses are other groups. Sometimes you'll see brackets, and I'll go over that when we see it, but parentheses, brackets, or other groupings, those go first. After that, exponents. Multiplying and dividing, adding and subtracting. Okay, let's go ahead and put those there. You could skip ahead a little bit, and I'll stop you when there's something, when there's a problem that'll stop you. We'll go over the problem. But besides that, like for this page, you'll have to skip. You press this right arrow a few times, and then you'll be able to move to the next page. Okay, but just move along until you get to the next page that stops you, which should be this page right here, page 10. Okay, use the order of operations to evaluate this expression. So here we're going to use that PEMDAS, the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? Use parentheses first, then exponents, multiplying and dividing from left to right, adding and subtracting together from left to right, and then you should get an answer. So for this one, you're going to do parentheses first. Notice there's 2 sets of parentheses. It doesn't really matter which one you do. First, I would kind of just do them together in the same step. The one thing you want to look out for is parentheses within parentheses, in the case you do the innermost first. But in this case, we don't have parentheses in parentheses. We just have 2 sets of parentheses. I like to do them together in the same step. So first, -2 plus 1. Okay, so -2 plus 1, that gives us -1. I'm going to continue to put it in parentheses because it has a squared here. Okay, has this exponent squared. Okay, plus 5 parentheses. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So like that. And then -9. Okay, what do we do next? Exponents. So that's -1 squared. So what does that mean? That means -1 times itself. -1 times -1. -1 times -1 is +1. Exponents. Then we do the multiplying. So 5 times 4 I'll put plus 20. And then minus 9. Okay, from here we do adding and subtracting from left to right. So 1 plus 20 is 21. 21 minus 9 is 12. Okay, so we want to put the number 12 right here. Okay, I hope that made sense. And once you've gotten that, and again, write down everything I write. If you do, it'll make a lot more sense. Let's move on after you're done with that. Now we're going to go over this page right here. This is page 13. I suggest that you understand each thing in here. So there's a few vocabulary terms that we need to know. The first one is a term. So the terms are like when we have this 4n plus 7, 4n is a term and 7 is a term. So this expression has two terms in it, 4n and 7, two terms. A constant is a type of term. A constant is a term where it's just a number. It does no variable attached to it. Like it doesn't say 7n or 7x or 7y, it's just a 7. So any number that's just a number out there, not attached to a variable, that's known as a constant, okay? And I'm going to be using these terms all the time throughout this entire course. So just make sure that you understand these terms and so you don't get too lost, okay? A coefficient is a number that's in front of a variable. When a number is in front of a variable, we call that a coefficient. And that number and the variable are actually multiplied. So when you see 4n like that, that means 4 is multiplied with n. And you're going to see this all the time. Is you're going to see a number right up against a letter. What that means is the number is multiplied by that variable. So this means 4 times n. Okay. Usually we're going to see this a lot. Whenever we see things just kind of smashed together, that means they're multiplied. One thing you're going to see too, and we saw this with this problem, notice we had 5 right up against the parentheses like that. That means they're multiplied. So that's how we got this 20. The 4 is right up, the 5 is right up against the parentheses. That means they're multiplied. So a lot of times in algebra and further on in math, you're not going to see a multiplication symbol. You're just going to see the stuff smashed together, and that implies that it's multiplication. So just got to keep that in mind. All right. And then factors. Things that are multiplied together are factors. So you can see the 4 and the n are multiplied together. We can call those factors. Okay. So the 4 is a factor, but it's also a coefficient, right? So sometimes it's multiple things at the same time. 4n is a term. And 7 is also a term, but it's also a constant. So there's lots of, this is a type of that sort of thing going on. Don't worry about it if it's not making 100% sense right now. Just know that I'm going to be using these terms, using this language repeatedly. So it'll make more sense as we go. Okay. We're also going to talk about like terms. So like terms, you can look at page 14. Like terms are like constants, are like terms with other constants. So you can always add or subtract like terms together. So for example, if it said negative 24 plus 243, we can add those. This is another example of like terms. Notice they have the same variable. They both have a. So if they both have the same variable, they are like terms. So negative 2x and 5x, those are like terms. However, if they have a different variable, see how this down here, negative 2x and 5y, those are not like terms. So you can't add or subtract those together. Similarly, a and a squared, those are not like terms. So they not only have to have the same variable, same letter, but they also have to have the same exponent. So if they have different exponents, even though they're both a's, those are not like terms. Okay. And then constants are not like terms with things that have a variable. So again, constants are like terms with other constants, and things with a variable have to have the same variable and the same exponent to be like terms. Again, we're going to go over this a lot, so don't worry about it if it seems confusing right now. Let's go ahead and look at this expression here. So we have 3x, that's our first term, plus 2 times x plus 2 plus 4. Again, the 2 is right up against parentheses. That means they're multiplied. So in the first term, the 3, on this first term, this 3 is a coefficient. So the 3 is a coefficient because right up against the x there. The 4, this term right here, the 4, that's a constant. It's just a plain number. That's a constant. And what about this x plus 2? Well, the 2 is multiplied by x plus 2. So since those two things are multiplied, the 2 and the x plus 2 are both factors. Okay. Once you got that, let's go and move along to page 17. Here it says simplify the expression. So a couple things with simplifying expressions is we're going to have to multiply some things out. In this case, the 4 that's in front of this parentheses is going to need to be multiplied by what's in the parentheses. So this 4 actually multiplies with both the terms in the parentheses. We call this distributing. So the 4 multiplies with this 1, and the 4 multiplies with this minus 2b. Okay. Then we're going to combine like terms. So we're going to look for if there's two constants, we want to add or subtract those together. Or if there's two things that both have b, we want to add or subtract those together as well. So let's first distribute this 4. So the 4 multiplies with both of these terms in the parentheses. So 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times negative 2b is negative 8b. Again, you just multiply the 4 times the coefficient there. Then we also have a plus 7b, and we have a minus 10. Let's go and combine like terms. So we can combine this, this negative 8b with this positive 7b. And you just add or subtract the coefficients like normal. So negative 8 plus 7, well, that's negative 1, but you keep the b. So negative 1b. And we can combine these constants. So this constant 4 and this constant negative 10, 4 plus negative 10, well, that's negative 6. Okay, so that's going to be our answer. Negative 1b minus 6. Now, one thing I do want to mention here is that negative 1b, you could just write it as negative b. So we can write this as negative b minus 6. That's what we'll put here. Negative b minus 6. And there you go. Once you got that, let's go ahead and move along. Again, write down everything I say and everything I write. I guarantee you'll make more sense. Let's go ahead and do this one together. Here in this one, we have a to the power of 3 minus b to the power of 3 divided by 5. So division, we usually write it like a fraction. From here on out, whenever you see a fraction, you can think of that as division. And a lot of times I'll just say divided by, okay? So this means a to the power of 3 minus b to the power of 3 divided by 5, okay? So here it says the value of a is 2 and the value of b is negative 3. So what we can do is replace the a with what its value is. So we're going to replace a with 2 and we're going to replace b with negative 3. So this will be, I'm just going to rewrite this, but replacing a and b with these two numbers here. So it's going to be 2 to the power of 3 minus negative 3 to the power of 3. Notice I put the negative 3 in parentheses. A lot of times when I'm replacing a variable with a negative, I usually put it in parentheses. That helps you to make fewer mistakes in some cases. And then divided by 5. Okay. Well, what is 2 to the power of 3? Well, that means 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, so that's not 6. That is not 6. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2, that's 8. So that's going to be 8 minus, then this is negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. So negative 3 times negative 3, that's positive 9. Positive 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. And then we have that divided by 5. 8 minus negative 27, that negative minus or minus negative, that can be written as a plus. So whenever you see a double negative applied to something, in this case, both those negatives apply to the 27, then you can write that as a plus. 8 plus 27 is 35. So we do 35 divided by 5. 35 divided by 5 is, of course, 7. Okay. Hope that made sense. If it did, let's move along. If it didn't make sense, maybe watch it again and see if you can make sense of it. Okay, again, write down everything I write. Okay. The next thing we're going to have to talk about is these bars. Notice there's like 4, -4, and then it's up against these bars here. You see these? This means absolute value. So when you're calculating an absolute value, the absolute value of any number will always come out to the positive version of that number. So the absolute value of 3 is just 3. The absolute value of -3 is also 3. Okay, so whether it's positive or negative in here, it'll always come out positive. So that's what these bars do. It changes it from either positive or negative to strictly a positive. Okay, and again, we're going to replace, in this case, we're replacing the variable m with -3. So I'm going to rewrite this just as it is, except I'm going to write, instead of an m, I'm going to write a -3. So we have -4 times the absolute value of 5 minus 3. We'll do the inside absolute value first. You generally want to do the inside of the absolute value first. Think about it kind of like parentheses. -4 times 5 minus 3 is 2. So we have the absolute value of 2, which is -4 times, what's the absolute value of 2? Well, that's just remains 2. So -4 times 2 is -8. And there you go. So in this box, we want to put -8. Okay, hope that all made sense. Let's go ahead and move on to the practice. And I have the practice questions all kind of on this PDF here. So just, again, write down everything I write down the questions, and it'll make a lot of sense. Okay, I'm not going to be going over every single one in full detail, but most of them I am going to. All right, so let's first start with this one. In this one, the variable s is equal to 2. The variable t is equal to -1.5. So I'm going to replace the s with 2 and the t with -1.5. So we have -3 times the absolute value of 5 minus 2 to the power of 3. Again, replacing s with 2, plus 3 times t, that becomes 3 times -1.5. Again, remember, see how the 3 is right up against the t? That means they're multiplied. You're going to see this in pretty much every question. So just recognize when a number, a coefficient is right up against a variable, those two things are multiplied. So that gives us -3. And I'm going to work out this inside the absolute value first. So this is going to be 5 minus 2 to the power of 3. Again, that means 2 times 2 times 2, that's 8. Plus 3 times -1.5. Let's work out what's in the absolute value. 5 minus 8 is -3. That's in the absolute value. Okay. What's the absolute value of -3? Is +3. So this becomes -3 times +3 plus 3 times -1.5. A negative times positive is a negative, so that's a -9. And then again, a positive times a negative is negative, so that's -4.5. You could use a calculator for any of these. Feel free to use the calculator on every single question. -9 minus 4.5 is -13.5. There you go. Click that one. Okay. Now you might have different questions on your practice. you're going to be offered like a sample of questions, but your questions will come up here. Okay, so I'm going to go over all the questions, but you're only going to see some of these questions. Okay, but I will go over all the questions that you have. Okay, again, this one we're replacing the variables with the numbers that they have here. So we're going to replace f with -4. We're going to replace g with 5, and we're going to replace h with 3/4. So this is -8 times h, so that becomes times 3/4, minus 2 times 5 plus -4 to the power of 3, plus 7 times g squared. G we're replacing with 5. Okay, there's a lot going on here, but what I want to focus on is this parentheses here, because there's stuff going on here. Remember, we want to do parentheses first, and there's a lot of parentheses going on, but only this parentheses in particular, this middle parentheses, only this one has like actual operations going on. So let's go and work out what that is. So that's going to be 5 plus -4 to the power of 3 is -4 times -4 times -4. That's going to be -64. 5 plus -64 is -59. Okay. Now let's go ahead and rewrite what we have. So we have -8 times 3/4. These problems, some of these problems are kind of long. Not all of them will be this long, but the longer ones, I'll go over them with you. So the next thing we would do is this exponent. So I wanted to go ahead and do this. So 5 squared, that means 5 times 5, that's 25. So this becomes 7 times 25. Okay, -8 times 3/4. So it's a negative times a positive. So we know it's going to be negative. And the way you multiply a number or a whole number times a fraction is, I like to just think of it as you multiply times the top, then divide by the bottom. So 8 times 3 is 24. 24 divided by 4 is 6. And again, it's -6 because a negative times positive is negative. Here, where you have a negative times a negative, right? -2 times -59. So that makes positive. Negative times negative is positive, and we multiply these together. So that's 118. Plus 7 times 25, I believe that's 175. Okay, and then you add these together. So -6 plus 118 is 112 plus 175, which gives us 287. Okay, again, not all the questions will be that hard, but they put some hard ones up front here. Okay, question 3, a times b, so that's going to be -2 times 3, again, replacing the a and b with those terms or with those numbers, plus 2 times -6, because we're replacing the c with -6. Divided by -3, because b is 3, times -6. C is -6. -2 times 3 is -6. 2 times -6 is -12. Divided by -3 times -6 is 18. Let's go ahead and do this top here. Now, here's a question I sometimes get is, oh, should we do the division next, right? Because this is dividing. Well, think of this as in parentheses, okay? Because you want to do the numerator and denominator separately as if they're in parentheses, because they're kind of in separate groups in a way, okay? So you actually want to do this subtraction first before you do the division. So that's going to be -18 divided by 18, which gives us -1. Okay, this one's very similar. This time we're replacing t with 3.5 because it says 3.5 seconds. So we're going to replace the t with 3.5. Does that mean we replace both the t's with 3.5? Yes, we replace every t in the expression with whatever we're saying here. So that's going to be negative 16 times 3.5 squared to the power of 2. We usually call that squared. Plus 64 times t. So that's 64 times 3.5 plus 3. So the first thing we want to do is this exponent. So 3.5 squared. So that means 3.5 times 3.5. That's 12.25. So I've got negative 16 times 12.25 plus 64 times 3.5 plus 3. So negative 16 times positive 12.5. A negative times positive is negative. So that's going to be negative 196, according to my calculator, just using a calculator. 64 times 3.5 is 224. And then plus 3. Negative 196 plus 224 plus 3 gives us 31. Okay. All right. Number 5 here, we have some fractions here to deal with. Let's see. And it says if we have a fraction, write your answer with a fraction bar. So we might have to, that's the slash symbol on your keyboard. Okay. But what we want to do first is this parentheses. Now, one thing to keep in mind when adding or subtracting fractions is that you need to have a common denominator, meaning the bottom number needs to be the same. So to the side, I'm going to do this side work. So I'm going to do 3/4 plus 1/6. Okay. Now, what would be the lowest common denominator between fourths and sixths? Well, that would be twelfths. Okay. Twelfths. Because we can change fourths into twelfths, and you can change sixths into twelfths. To change from fourths to twelfths, you'd multiply by 3. Right? 3 times 4 is 12. So you multiply the numerator also by 3. 9/12. So 3/4 is the same as 9/12. For 6, multiplied by 2 to get 12. You multiply the numerator also by 2 to get 2/12. 9/12 plus 2/12 is 11/12. Okay, so we got that on the side here. So we have 2/3 divided by, and I'm going to go and work this out too, because this would be my next step, is to do this exponent. So 2 to the power of 4 is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So 2 to the power of 4, that's 16. Plus, this became 11/12. Don't need the parentheses anymore. Divided by 1/3. Okay. For this 16, I would suggest writing it as 16/1. Now we're going to do these divisions. Okay, we have division of fractions. The way you divide fractions is you change the division to multiplication, and you flip the second fraction. So we could rewrite this as 2/3 times 1/16. So you flip the second fraction there. I'm going to go ahead and do the same over here. 11/12 times 3/1. Now to multiply fractions, you can multiply top times top, bottom times the bottom. So 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 16 is 48. Plus, same thing over here. 11 times 3 is 33. Over 12 times 1 is 12. For this fraction, for both these fractions, actually, we can reduce them. So this is kind of a long one, but let's reduce the first fraction. We can divide both numerator and denominator by 2, giving us 1/24. Okay. Now, I also notice here that this one changed to a 24th. I should probably change this to 24ths. That way they have the same denominator. So I'm actually, instead of reducing by 3, which I could, I'm going to go and multiply this by 2, multiply this by 2. That way I can make this 66 over 24. Now notice they have the same denominator. That's what I'm looking for. That's going to be 67 over 24. $67 over 24. Okay. All right. That was a tricky one. Number 6. Shelley evaluated the expression using the order of operations. Again, that's PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiplying and dividing together, adding and subtracting together. But she made a mistake. Which step is Shelley's mistake? So let's look at this expression. What would I do first here? Well, I hope you would see that we would do the parentheses first, 3 minus 8. And she did that. She did that correctly. See, I gave a negative 5. What would be the next step? Well, the next step would be 2 to the power of 2. So this exponent, 2 to the power of 2 is 4. Looks like she did that correctly. What would be my next step? I would say my next step would be to multiply this 4 times negative 5. That would give you negative 20. Looks like she did that correctly, negative 20. What would be my next step? I would do this division next. Negative 20 divided by 5 to get 4, or negative 4, I should say. Oh wait, she didn't do that. So this is where the problem exists. So you'd click on this one. Okay, she made a mistake. She should have put negative 20 divided by 5 first, but instead she did 5 minus 1 first. That's wrong. Okay, next one. Here we look at this expression. Notice this negative is in front of this parentheses. So you got a negative here in front of this parentheses. What that means is this negative applies to this parentheses. It's going to change the signs of everything in this parentheses. So this first one, I'm just going to rewrite this first stuff. The parentheses here is not really needed, so I'm just going to drop it. Here, though, this negative applies to both these. So negative 3x, it changes it to a negative, see? But when this negative goes to this one, that changes it to a positive. Remember, when two negatives apply to the same thing, that makes it positive. Now we want to combine like terms. So this 38x, we can combine it with this negative 3x because they're both x's. Those are like terms. So that's going to be 35x. Yeah, positive 35x. 61y plus 11y. Again, those are like terms. We can add them together. So that's 72y. Okay, and that'll be your answer. Number 8. Which of the following represents a term from this expression given? So in this case, there's 3 terms. 3x squared is a term, 8x is a term, and negative 10 is a term. This term is a constant, the negative 10. Okay, so which of these is a term? 8x is a term. Which of the following represents a factor? So again, factors are multiplied together. In this case, the only things that are multiplied together is the 5 times this thing, 3x squared plus 9x. So 5 is a factor, and 3x squared plus 9x is a factor. 5 is a factor. Which of the following represents a coefficient? So a coefficient is right up against a variable. So it's a number multiplied by the variable. In this case, 9 is the coefficient here because it's right up against that x. Which algebraic expression is equivalent to this? So here we have this 3 right up against this parentheses. So what that means is the 3 is multiplied by this parentheses. So we're going to distribute this 3. The 3 multiplies with both of these terms. So that's going to be 15x. Again, you just multiply it times the coefficient. Plus 3 times 7 is 21. Same idea here. The negative 6 multiplies with the 4 and also with this negative 2x. So negative 6 times 4 is negative 24. And negative 6 times negative 2x. A negative times a negative makes positive. And you just multiply the 6 times this coefficient, the 2. Now we want to combine like terms. I always combine my variables first. So if there's any variables I can combine together, I go ahead and do that first. So 15x plus 12x, that's 27x. 21 minus 24, those are both constants, so I can add those together. That makes negative 3. Last one. Here you would click and drag the correct ones to the correct answers. Okay. But for all these, they're very similar. You just want to do the parentheses first. So in this one, I'm going to put my work over here. So it's 2 to the power of 4 plus, and I'm going to go ahead and combine those together. So 2.75 plus 1.75 is 4.5. And then we have it divided by 0.9. 2 to the power of 4, that means 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. So that's 16 plus, and then I'll go ahead and do this division as well. So 4.5 divided by 0.9 is 5. 16 plus 5 is 21. So this one, the 21, this would be click and drag to this one here. Let's go and do this next one together. So we'd have 4 to the power of 3 times, I don't like to use this x for times. I like to use a dot instead. So you'll pretty much never see me use an x for multiplication. Okay, let's go ahead and add these together in the parentheses, because again, we want to do parentheses first. So 0.6 times 3.6 is 4.2. And then we have it divided by 0.3. Let's go ahead and do the exponent next. So that'd be 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. Do not write 12 here. Okay, this does not mean 4 times 3. It means 4 times 4 times 4. Okay, so 64 times 4.2. And then I'm going to divide by 0.3. I've got 896. Okay, I'm going to let you try the last one on your own. Again, do the parentheses first, then do the exponent, then do the division, and then add together. Okay. Next, we're going to go over the mastery test. So again, you'll be offered 5 questions on the mastery test. I don't know which 5 questions you're going to get, but you need to get 4 out of 5 correct in order to move on. If you get less than that, then unfortunately, you'll have to retake the mastery test. But I'm going to go over some of the problems in full, and then some of the problems I'm going to be just kind of give you a hint or some direction. Okay. So for this one, here we're dealing with the absolute value. I'm going to go ahead and do this one completely with you. So if you have this question, then that's good for you. So it's -3, and I'm going to replace the t with -12. So we have a -12 minus 8 inside the absolute value. Let's go ahead and do this inside the absolute value. Think of it like inside parentheses. You want to do that first. So we have -3 times the absolute value. This makes a -20 plus 1.5. Again, when it's an absolute value, it always comes out positive. So this is -3 times positive 20. Absolute value, remember, it always turns it positive, plus 1.5. Your next step would be to multiply these together. So that makes -60. A negative times positive is negative, plus 1.5. This makes -58.5. Again, you can use the calculator as much as you wish. Question 2. Here, you're just combining like terms. So you want to combine the 5.3x and the 3.6x. Those would combine together. So you want to add those together. Then you'd combine your constants. So combine the negative 8.14x, or sorry, that one doesn't have an x. Negative 8.14 plus the 9.8. Those constants you'd combine together, okay? You can use the calculator to figure out which one's the right answer. Here's another absolute value question. I'm going to go ahead and work this one with you completely. So this is 5 times the absolute value of negative 5. I'm replacing the x with the x value here. Minus, replace the y with 25 in this case. This is to the power of 3. Again, that means 25 times 25 times 25. And we're going to divide by negative 5. Divide by x. Okay. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5. So this becomes 5 times 5 minus, and I'm going to do 25 to the power of 3. So 25 times 25 times 25. That gives me a large number. 15,625. Divide by negative 5. So we have 25, because that's 5 times 5, minus 15,625 divided by negative 5. 25 minus 15,625 is negative 15,600, then divide by negative 5. D. Lindy works at a pizza restaurant and gets a 10% employee discount. She knows that if she orders D drinks and a medium pizza with T toppings, her total cost can be found using this expression. So 0.90 times 2.25D plus 1.40T plus 6. What will be the total cost for Lindy and her friends to order 4 drinks and a medium pizza with 3 toppings? So I'm going to replace the D with 4 and the T with 3. So that's going to be 0.9. These zeros don't matter. 2.25 times 4, because I'm replacing the D here with 4, plus $1.40 times the number of toppings, that's 3, then plus 6. Okay, so here we have parentheses, inner parentheses. Just do the order of operations within this parentheses. So we want to multiply first. So 2.25 times 4 is 9. 1.4 times 3 is 4.2. Then plus 6. Okay. Go ahead and add these together in the parentheses and then multiply by 0.9 to get your answer. Next one. Here, just do the order of operations. Again, you'd do this parentheses first. Okay. Then you'd do the exponent, then multiplying and dividing from left to right, and adding and subtracting from left to right. Okay, for this one, it has fractions, so I'm going to help you a bit. These parentheses, I want to do what's in the parentheses first, but I can't really add these together because they're not like terms. Also right here, I would like to subtract these, but I can't because they're not like terms. So I don't actually need the parentheses in this case. If there was something multiplied by the front of the parentheses, I would want to distribute that. But in this case, there's nothing in front of the parentheses multiplying. There's no negative in front of the parentheses. And I can't really do anything in these parentheses. So I could just drop the parentheses. They're not needed. But from here, I want to combine like terms. So I want to combine this 1/7 x plus this 2/9 x. So to the side here, I'm going to do a little bit of side work. I'm going to do this 1/7 plus 2/9 over to the side. Now, again, whenever adding or subtracting fractions, you need to have a common denominator. In this case, our common denominator is 63. I'm just multiplying the 7 times 9 to get 63. A lot of times you could always multiply the denominators to find a common denominator. It's not always the smallest one. You may have to reduce it. But in this case, it is the lowest common denominator. So I multiplied by 9 on this fraction, on top and on bottom here, to get 9/63. Multiply both top and bottom by 7 here to get 14/63. And we could add these together. So that would be 23/63. And that had an x next to it, so x, right? Because those both had an x term, right? Those are both my x terms. Okay, now I want to divide, or sorry, now I want to add the 3/8 minus 1/8. 3/8 minus 1/8, well, they already have a common denominator, so I just subtract the numerator. So 3 minus 1 is 2/8. I could simplify that to 1/4, so this would be my answer. 2/8 reduces down to 1/4 by dividing by 2 on top and on bottom. Okay. For this one, I think you can do it. I want you to just combine these together. Notice it says P plus 4P. You just want to combine those because they're like terms. You can think of that as 1P plus 4P. So what would that be? This one, I think you can do it on your own as well. But I'm going to go ahead and give you the first step. What you want to do is distribute this -7. So -7 multiplies with both these. So that's going to be -7x minus 28. Then combine like terms. Oh, wait, I'm not doing this right. I need to read the question. It says, which term is a term in this expression? Yeah, so which of these is a term in this expression? So -3x is an example of a term in this expression. -3x. Okay. Here, I think you could do this one on your own. Just replace the n with 4. So it'll be 3 times 4 plus 7, and then divided by 4, and work out what that is. Which algebraic expression? Okay, so here you would distribute this 3 to both of these, but not to the -11, okay? Just to each of these terms in the parentheses. This 3 multiplies with each of these. So that'll be 6x minus 24, and then minus 11x. Then combine like terms to get whatever this answer is. This one's got a fraction in it, so I'll help you out a little more if you have this problem. For this one, we're replacing the x with -6 and the y with -1/2. So it's going to be 4 times x squared, so we're going to be -6 squared. Here, the parentheses around the -6 does matter, okay? Plus 3 minus 2 times -1/2. Okay, so we want to do this parentheses first. So this is 4 times -6 squared. That means -6 times -6. So that makes a positive 36. Plus 3 minus 2 times -1/2. This becomes 4 times 39. Adding these together. Okay. Then we need to multiply these together. So 4 times 39 is 156. Then a negative times a negative, that makes positive. What's 2 times 1/2? Well, what's half of 2? Well, that's just 1. Okay, so 156 plus 1 gives us 157. Here, replace the A with 4, the B with -5, and the C with -7. So I'm going to help you rewrite this. So this is going to be 4 plus, notice this 2BC, they're all smashed together, right? 2BC. that means they're multiplied. So it'll be 2 times B times C. So this will be 2 times -5 times -7 over 3 times 4. Again, replacing the A with 4. So it's going to be 4 plus, let's go and multiply these together. 2 times -5 times -7. That gives you positive 70. The reason it's positive is because a negative times negative gives you a positive over 12. Okay, work out the rest of this. Oh, actually, I'll work it out with you. So 4 plus 70 is 74 divided by 12. Here I can reduce this by 2. So this would be 37 over 6, dividing both these by 2. So to reduce a fraction, you divide them both by the same thing. In this case, both by 2. Now we want to divide that. So 37 divided by 6. Well, 37 divided by 6. 6 goes into 37 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. Subtract, that gives us 1. With that remainder, you do 1 over this 6. So 6 and 1/6. Okay. I don't like mixed numbers, by the way. I'd rather you, if this were me in my test I was writing, I would have you leave it like this. A reduced improper fraction is better than a mixed number in my book. Okay. For this one, we have -11 over 2. X. This first parentheses doesn't really matter because I can't combine these together and there's nothing multiplied by the front. This second parentheses though, this -2 is going to multiply with both these terms. So -2 times -11/4. That gives positive 22/4 X. And then -2 times -5 over 2. In this case, I'm multiplying by 2 and then dividing by 2. You can think of those as canceling. So that's good. That's going to give us positive 5. I can reduce this 22/4. I can reduce this by 2, giving us 11 over 2. So I'm going to go and change this to 11 over 2. So we have a -11 over 2x and a positive 11 over 2x. Those cancel. 3 plus 5 is 8. Okay. For this one, you want to click and drag the correct ones to the correct ones. Okay. I'm going to do some of these with you, but I'm going to expect you to do some on your own. So I'm going to do this one with this 3 over 2, 13 minus 3 over 2r minus 1 minus r, and do this one with you. Again, this first parentheses doesn't matter. I can't combine these together because this one has an R, this one doesn't. They are not like terms. Here, this negative goes to both of these terms, changing their signs. -1 plus R. Now let's combine like terms. 13 minus 1. Actually, let's combine our R's first. So we have -3 over 2R plus R. That makes -1/2 R. 13 minus 1 makes 12. Okay, so that's this one. Okay, so this one would go to here. I'm going to do this other fraction one with you. So here, this first parentheses, again, doesn't matter. The second parentheses gets this negative, changing both their signs. -2/3 minus 6R. I like to combine my R's together first. So 7R minus 6R, that's 1R. If it's 1R, I'll just write it as R. Then I want to combine this -3 over 2 minus 2 over 3. So I'm going to the side here, I got -3 over 2. I'm going to do, I like to add my fractions on the side just so I don't confuse things, but they have lowest common denominator. In this case is 6. So for this fraction, I multiply top and bottom by 2. giving us negative 4/6. And this one I multiply top and bottom by 3, giving me negative 9/6. So negative 9/6 minus 4/6 is negative 13/6. So this one goes here. Okay. Try to figure out the other two on your own and where they would go. Okay. This one I'm going to do similarly, where I'm going to do a couple of them for you or with you, and then you have to do the rest on your own. Okay. I'll do this one here. This first parentheses doesn't really matter again because there's nothing in front of it, multiplying. And also I can't combine these because they're not like terms. So this is going to be negative 14 plus 3 over 2b. This one, the negative gets distributed. So that's negative 1 minus 8 over 2b. Okay, let's go and combine the b's together. So 3 over 2b minus 8 over 2b. Well, it's good they're both over 2 because they have the same denominator, which means I can add or subtract the numerators. So that's negative 5 over 2b. You have more negatives, so that's why it's negative. Negative 14 minus 1 is negative 15. Okay. So that's this one. So this one and this one go together. Okay. See if you can do the rest of these on your own. Yeah. Okay. Use the given expression to complete the statements. In the first term, the 5, what is this called? What do we call this? The second term, what do we call this? And then what do we call this? Okay. So you should know that. Okay. Here, I want you to try this one on your own. Remember, this negative gets distributed to this parentheses, changing both their signs. So that's going to make it a negative 5 plus 6x, then combine like terms. Okay. For this one, I'm just going to help you with this bottom one here. Remember, this 8 gets distributed. So the 8 times 1/4 and 8 times 2. So we could do 4 plus 8 times 1/4. So you can think of 8 times 1 divided by 4. So 8 times 1 is 8, divided by 4 is 2. 8 times 2 is 16. Then just add those together. Okay, see if you do the rest on your own. Again, remember, parentheses first, then exponents, multiplying and dividing from left to right, adding and subtracting from left to right. For this one, we have a parentheses within a bracket. So treat the bracket like a parentheses in itself, but you want to do the innermost parentheses first. So we're going to do this 4 times a squared first. So on the side here, I'm going to actually isolate this bracket so I can work on it kind of separately here. And the a, we're going to replace that with 5. So a becomes 5. Okay, again, you want to do the inner parentheses first. So we're going to do 4 times 5 squared. So you actually do the exponent first, right? Exponents before multiplying. So 5 squared, that means 5 times 5. That's 25. 4 times 25 is 100. 2 minus 100 is negative 98. Okay, so this becomes 12 plus negative 98 divided by 7 plus 1. Okay, see if you do the rest on your own. Remember, you would do this division next. Okay, keep in mind you do multiplying and dividing before adding and subtracting. Whatever the answer is, make sure to click on this, whichever it is, on the number line. Okay, you'd select this point tool and then press right there. Okay, last one. Hayden evaluated this expression using the order of operations, but he made a mistake. Which step was the mistake? So just kind of go through it. Make sure, like, is he doing parentheses first and you can see 11 minus 4 is what you would do first, and he did that correctly. So the step 1 is correct, but see where he made the mistake. Just make sure you follow the order of operations, and you should be able to find the mistake he made. Okay, I hope that all made sense. I hope you're able to get through it. If you liked the video and you found it helpful, and you want to say thank you, then you can always share it with someone else or just subscribe. Okay, well with that, hope that made sense. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.